Cedric Diggory had a short appearance in the Harry Potter series, but had a huge impact on both Harry and the entire franchise itself. In this video, I'm going to explain the life of Cedric Diggory. Cedric was born to Amos Diggory and his wife in 1977. The family lived in the outskirts of a small village called Ottery St. Catchpole, located in Devon, England. It was nestled among rolling hills and fertile meadows. They lived near a few other wizarding families, including the Fawcetts, the Weasleys, and the Lovegoods. Amos worked for the Ministry of Magic in the Department of Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. He was an extremely proud father and pushed his son to be competitive. He often bragged of Cedric's talent. When Cedric got his Hogwarts letter, he went to Ollivander's, and he purchased a wand that contained a single hair from the tail of a fine male unicorn. When he went to school, he was sorted into Hufflepuff. He exceeded both in class and on the Quidditch pitch. He was made Seeker for his house team in his second year, and was one of the best players Hufflepuff had seen in a very long time. He was a different build than most Seekers. Most were small and speedy, but he was more muscular, making him bigger and heavier than most Seekers. But this didn't stop him from still being just as speedy as the other ones. While at Hogwarts, Cedric was described as having dark hair, gray eyes, was tall, strong, and silent, and an extremely handsome boy. He turned the heads of many girls when he walked by, and many girls had a huge crush on him. He was extremely popular and was known to be a nice guy. During his 5th year, he was made both a prefect and the captain of the Hufflepuff Quidditch team. His first game as captain was against Gryffindor. It was pouring rain, making it difficult for him and Harry to see the golden snitch. Cedric eventually saw the snitch and was pelting up the field. Harry saw Cedric going after it and followed, but as he was racing towards Cedric and the snitch, they were being surrounded by over 100 Dementors, and Harry collapsed off his broomstick. Cedric caught the snitch seconds after that. He later said that he didn't realize what had happened until he already caught the snitch. When he looked back and saw Harry on the ground, he tried to call it off and he wanted a rematch. But the whole Gryffindor team said that they had won fair and square, and that even if the Dementors weren't there, he would have caught the snitch before Harry. Cedric was the first Seeker to ever outplay Harry. When Harry received the Firebolt broomstick, Cedric came over to congratulate him on having acquired such a superb replacement for his old Nimbus 2000. The following summer, Cedric and his father went to the Quidditch World Cup. They woke up at 2 a.m. and met up with the Weasleys along with Harry and Hermione to catch a portkey to the match. When they all met up, Fred and George didn't say hi to Cedric as everyone else did, because they still hadn't forgiven Cedric for beating them in Quidditch the previous term. When Amos was introduced to Harry, he said, "Told Ced that'll be something to tell your grandchildren, that will. You beat Harry Potter." After his father said this, he looked very embarrassed and modestly said, "Harry fell off his broom, Dad. I told you, it was an accident." "Yes, but you didn't fall off, did you?" "Always modest, said. Always the gentleman. But the best man won. One falls off the broomstick, one stays on. You don't need to be a genius to tell which one's the better flyer." When they all took the portkey, every one of the kids fell to the ground, but Cedric managed to stay on his feet with his father and Mr. Weasley. When he went to Hogwarts for his 6th year, it was announced that they were having the Triwizard Tournament, and that one person from each school would compete. When he heard about it, Cedric wanted to compete for Hogwarts, and had full support from all of Hufflepuff. Cedric put his name in the Goblet of Fire, and a week later, when it was time to see who was chosen, it was announced that he would be the Hogwarts champion.
The Hogwarts champion, Cedric Diggory!
Cedric grinned broadly when his name was chosen, and the clapping for him went on for so long that it took Dumbledore some time before he could make himself heard again. Everyone thought that was it, but then the Goblet of Fire spit out another name.
Harry Potter!
When Cedric was told that Harry was the 4th champion, he looked surprised and confused, and thought that he must have misheard, because not only was Harry the 2nd Hogwarts champion, but he was also underage, making him ineligible to enter his name in the first place. After the champions had gotten their instructions for the first task, Cedric and Harry walked out together. Cedric smiled and said, "So, we're playing against each other again. So tell me, how did you get your name in?" "I didn't put it in. I was telling the truth." Cedric didn't believe Harry, and said bye to him, and went back to Hufflepuff's common room. When Cedric got there, he was greeted with cheers by his whole house, and they had a huge celebration. The entirety of Hufflepuff and many other students from other houses were extremely upset that Harry was the 2nd champion. The Hufflepuffs, who were usually on great terms with the Gryffindors, turned remarkably cold toward them. They felt that Harry had stolen their glory, something their house had rarely gotten, and Cedric, one of the few people in their house that had ever given it to them, was overshadowed by Harry and Gryffindor, making them feel insignificant once again. In the Daily Prophet, there was a story that was supposed to be written about all 4 of the champions, but it turned out to be all about Harry, and Cedric's name wasn't even mentioned in the article. Cedric, however, still got a lot of recognition, which even rivaled the Durmstrang competitor Victor Crumb, a professional Quidditch player straight off winning the World Cup. Cedric had girls begging for his autograph. Even Fleur Delacour, a beautiful girl who was also one of the champions, and who was part Vila, beings that are naturally irresistible to men, was flirting with him and throwing back her long silvery hair as she did so. A huge chunk of the school started wearing badges that said, "Support Cedric Diggory, the real Hogwarts champion." It would then vanish and replace the letters to say, "Potter stinks."
Potter stinks!
Cedric was nervous but very excited for the first task. The other 3 champions all knew what they had to do in the first task due to cheating and seeing a sneak peek of it early, and Harry decided to tell Cedric what was to come.
Dragons. That's the first task. They've got one for each of us.
Cedric asked Harry why he was telling him this, and Harry responded saying, "It's just fair, isn't it? We all know now." Because of this, Cedric told people to stop harassing Harry and to stop wearing the Support Cedric Diggory badges. With the information that Harry had given to him, Cedric came up with a plan for the task and started practicing his transfiguration spells. When it came time for the task, Cedric was pacing up and down the tent looking rather green in the face. When Harry walked in, Cedric smiled at him. When it came time for the champions to choose a dragon they had to get past to collect a golden egg, he pulled out a Swedish short snout with a number 1 around its neck, meaning that he was the first to go. Cedric was greener than ever when he went out to face the dragon. The crowd roared when he came out. It took him about 15 minutes before he was able to get past the dragon and get the egg. He transfigured a rock to turn it into a dog, trying to make the dragon go after the dog instead of him. It worked at first, but when he was halfway to the egg, the dragon changed its mind and decided that it wanted Cedric more than the dog. He got the egg, but ended up getting burned on his face by the dragon. He wasn't injured too badly and was still standing, but Madame Pomfrey had to tend to him afterwards. She put a thick orange paste on one half of his face to calm the burn. When he saw Harry after the task, he smiled at him and said, "Good one, Harry." After that, they told the champions that the egg that they had captured would give them a clue for the next task. When Cedric went back to the castle and opened the egg, it wailed an ear-piercing scream. He eventually went into the prefect's bathroom with the egg and opened it underwater, and it sang a song to him that gave him the clue. It said that something he would solely miss would be taken from him, and he would have to retrieve it while breathing underwater for an hour. When it came time for the Yule Ball, Cedric and the other champions had to find a date as they started the first dance. Cedric asked a girl named Cho Chang days before Harry asked her, something that made Harry very frustrated as he really liked Cho as well. Cedric and Cho opened the ball as they danced with the other champions. After the ball, as Cedric and Cho were walking out, Cedric called after Harry. He told Harry that he owed him one for telling him about the dragons, and he gave Harry a clue about opening the egg.
You know the prefect's bathroom on the 5th floor? It's not a bad place for a bath. Just take your egg and mull things over in the hot water.
He also gave Harry access to the prefect's bathroom. When it came time for the second task, Cedric magically made a bubble around his face, which allowed him to breathe underwater. He found out that the thing he had to retrieve that he would solely miss was Cho Chang. She was tied up underwater with Ron, Hermione, and Fleur's sister, each person for one of the champions. Cedric was the second person to find them, Harry being the first. He pulled out a knife to cut Cho free, and was the first to finish the task, as Harry stayed back to make sure that the others tied up were safe. Cedric finished 1 minute past the time limit, but was still in first place for this task. When the marks went up after the other champions finished, he and Harry were tied for first place overall. Cedric and the other champions started to wonder what the next task was. He and Fleur talked about it, and she told him that she thought it was going to be an underground tunnel where they would have to find treasure. One night, Cedric and the other champions were told to go to the Quidditch pitch, where they would receive instructions on the third task. When they walked into the stadium, the pitch was no longer flat, but was growing long walls that twisted and crisscrossed in every direction. Cedric stopped dead when he saw this. He was upset about what they had done to the pitch, but they assured him that he would have it back to normal after the task. They were then told that the Triwizard Cup would be placed in the center of the maze, and they would face creatures, jinxes, and other magical enchantments. Cedric and Harry were told that they have the advantage to go in first, as they were both tied for first place. Before the third and final task, Cedric's parents came to Hogwarts. Cedric's dad said to Harry, "Bet you're not feeling quite as full of yourself now Cedric's caught you up on points, are you?" Cedric, who was embarrassed, told Harry to ignore him, and he frowned at his father, and said quietly to Harry, "He's been angry ever since Rita Skeeter's article about the Triwizard Tournament. You know, when she made out you were the only Hogwarts champion. Didn't bother to correct her though, did he? Still, you'll show him, said. Beaten him once before, haven't you?" When it came time for the task, Harry and Cedric entered the maze first. Cedric first faced a blast-ended Scroot that burned the sleeve of his robe, leaving it smoking, and he just barely got away. Later on, Victor Crumb, who was under the Imperious Curse by Barty Crouch Jr., snuck up on Cedric. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Crumb then shot the Cruciatus curse, or the torture curse, right at Cedric. Cedric fell to the ground and yelled in agony. Harry heard what was going on and ran over. Crumb stopped and tried to run away, but Harry stunned him. The two then parted ways again. Cedric finally found the cup and started racing toward it, but he was so focused on the cup that he didn't see a giant spider speeding toward him. Harry, who had just gotten there, warned him, and Cedric just barely dodged it, but he tripped while doing so. The spider started bearing down on Cedric until Harry shot a spell at the spider, and the spider went after Harry. Cedric got up and shot spells back at the spider, this time him trying to save Harry. Cedric and Harry then shot a stunning spell at the exact same time, which finally knocked the spider out, and the two walked toward the Triwizard Cup. Harry then told Cedric to take it, but Cedric refused and said that Harry should take it since he saved his life from the spider. They then argued for a little bit longer, until they agreed to touch the cup at the exact same time, so that they would both win. Cedric grinned as they did so, both ready for the prize and glory. This, however, is not what happened. The two ended up in a graveyard next to the Riddle family house. The cup was a portkey. They took their wands out, not sure if this was part of the task or not. Their question was answered when a man carrying what looked like a baby started walking toward them.
Who are you? What do you want?
Lord Voldemort then said,
Kill the stag!
No! Cedric!
Cedric was lying, spread-eagled on the ground beside him. He was dead. Harry stared into Cedric's face, at his open gray eyes, at his half-open mouth, which looked slightly surprised. Lord Voldemort then returned to a full-functioning body.
Such a handsome boy.
Don't touch him!
Harry and Voldemort began a duel, and Cedric emerged from Voldemort's wand, along with Harry's parents and a few others, all victims of the Dark Lord. Cedric looked at Harry, who was still dueling Voldemort. Hold on, Harry. All the victims talked to Harry and gave him courage to keep fighting. Cedric had one last wish.
Harry, take my body back, will you? Take my body back to my father.
The victims then told Harry to let go, and as he did so, they all closed in upon Voldemort, hiding Harry from his gaze, allowing Harry to make it back to Cedric's dead body. He called the cup to him, and they vanished from the graveyard. They arrived back at Hogwarts, where the crowd was waiting for them. Harry let go of the cup, but he clutched Cedric to him even more tightly.
Cedric! He asked me to bring his body back. I couldn't leave him. Not that.
Cedric's parents were in the stands. The father, who was so proud of his son, ran over to his son's dead body.
That's my son! That's my boy!
The loss of Cedric affected everyone. The Diggorys stayed with Professor Sprout that night, who was the head of Cedric's house, as they grieved the loss of their only son. The next morning, the Diggorys met Harry. They told him that they did not blame him for what had happened, and both thanked him for returning Cedric's body to them. Mr. Diggory sobbed through most of the conversation. Mrs. Diggory's grief, however, seemed to be beyond tears. Harry told them how he had died. He suffered very little then, and after all, Amos, he died just when he'd won the tournament. He must have been happy. Harry offered them the sack of gold that he won from the tournament. They refused the gold, however. At the end of term, the Great Hall was covered in black drapes as a mark of respect to Cedric. Dumbledore then spoke to the students and staff as he honored Cedric.
And we'll celebrate a boy who was kind and honest and brave, and true, right to the very end.
Cedric's death had a huge impact on a lot of people. For Harry, not only was he able to see Thestrals now due to witnessing death right in front of him, but he constantly thought of Cedric and dreamt about him.
Moaning in your sleep every night? Don't kill Cedric!
His death haunted Harry, and was definitely a driving force as he fought back against Voldemort. He kept a Support Cedric Diggory badge in honor of his fallen ally. His death had a huge impact on the students of Hogwarts as well, and was the driving force that fueled Dumbledore's army, and the reason why they kept fighting until the Battle of Hogwarts. Cedric could have easily been someone who was a cocky, arrogant jerk, with his good looks, talent, and popularity. But time and time again, he proved that he was so much more than that. He was one of the kindest and most selfless people in the series, and treated everyone with respect, up until his tragic end that started the Second Wizarding War.